Lee is finally making its much anticipated turn to the north. What's going on, guys? I'm certified meteorologist Jonathan Kagas. In this video, we're going to take a look at the latest on Lee, from the satellite to the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, and break down why it will continue to make the turn to the north. Unfortunately, though, toward parts of New England and into the Canadian Maritimes. We're going to look at some of the impacts coming our way as well toward the upcoming weekend, really from Friday through about the early stages of next week as well. On a positive note, we do have more rain coming to parts of the southern U.S. I'm looking at you, Texas, where we desperately need it the most. And then at the end of the video, we're going to break down the latest on the full tropical update. So stick around towards the end for that. We have a new invest out there, show you the latest modeling as well. Before we get into the video, if you do want to stay updated on the rest of hurricane season and the weather in general, you have to hit subscribe. Please do that. If you find this content helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out a lot. Here is Lee. It looks a little ragged at times. Nonetheless, it is still a very powerful and very large Category 3 hurricane. Sustained winds as of Wednesday morning at 115 miles per hour. The millibar is still down below 950, so still a very strong storm. And then there you go. Look at the movement. What had been west-northwest is now north-northwest. Notice the clouds as well. These upper-level cirrus clouds, they're being pulled to the north. It is starting to feel that trough that we've been talking about on this channel for a very long time now, for about the week. Again, as a lot of people said, this was going to continue to stay west and blast Florida. That trough, again, is the reason why it is not coming to the southeast. It's not coming to the mid-Atlantic. But again, unfortunately, coming towards us in parts of New England and the Canadian Maritimes. Tropical storm conditions expected from tonight into tomorrow on the island of Bermuda. By early Saturday morning, here we go at 8 o'clock, still a Category 1 hurricane as it works its way towards either Maine as a landfall or Nova Scotia, maybe even New Brunswick as well. There's still a little bit of uncertainty if this system, if Lee gets aggressively pulled back towards Maine or is just guided to the north closer towards Nova Scotia or New Brunswick. Regardless, we talked about the size of this storm. It is very, very large, so impacts are going to extend well outside of the cone here. So impacts, again, are looking very likely here by the time we get into maybe as early as Friday night towards Nantucket, and then especially Saturday, Sunday, early Monday for parts of New England and the Canadian Maritimes. Here are the latest models. Then we're going to get into some of the timeline here and impacts that are coming from Lee. Most of the models, again, are very tightly packed. A lot of good agreement. We're getting a lot of good data in from the steering currents as that dip in the jet stream has entered the upper air network of the United States, getting sampled very well. And then we've, of course, had the hurricane hunters doing great work, as they always do, getting us data in and around the storm. Now, there is still some divergence in the models up here. You see a couple of these want to bring it closer to Maine before taking it back off towards the north and east, towards New Brunswick or Nova Scotia. Most of the models do kind of hone in on either New Brunswick or Nova Scotia for the center to come ashore. I will say, though, as this begins to lose its tropical characteristics on its way towards land, really the main impacts may not be right around the center anymore. They are really going to start to unravel. So this is a very large wind field again, so we just have to be prepared for that. I want to show you this. This is a pretty cool graphic here that kind of illustrates, again, the potential for tropical storm force wind gusts over the next couple of days, or I should say tropical storm force wind sustained. That green starts to represent the probabilities here of tropical storm force wind. So I want to stop the clock at early Saturday morning, and you see Nantucket, we have a shot already early Saturday to start to get in on some sustained winds of 40+ miles an hour. That is tropical storm force. We are likely going to see tropical storm force gusts really anywhere you see the yellow and red color here. Again, this is where the National Hurricane Center is forecasting this thing to come on through. You see Bangor, we could have a 35% chance here of sustained winds of tropical storm force. St. John, 33%. Nantucket, we have the highest chance for sustained tropical storm force winds at 46%. All of these probabilities you see over 30%, I think we have a really good shot of seeing tropical storm force winds on the gust scale. Again, what I showed you there was from a sustained wind perspective. Had a few questions yesterday on what the storm surge could look like out of this, specifically on Long Island. So here is a graphic for you that on the western side, closer towards the western side of Long Island, we could have storm surge on the order of about 3 or 4 feet or so. That's that yellow shaded area you see there on your screen is the storm surge at about 3 to 6 feet. The blue color represents 1 to 3 feet. So even on the eastern tip there of Nova Scotia, of Long Island and into Long Island Sound, we're talking about at least 1 to 3 feet of storm surge, and then closer towards the city, more like 3 to 6 feet. Now, you see off the coast of Massachusetts, right around Cape Cod, you get that orange color as we get that northeast wind, that strong northeast wind as Lee lifts towards the north. We could have greater than 6-foot storm surge there right on Cape Cod. And then through most of the coast of Maine, 3 to 6 foot storm surge. And then you start to get into the oranges and reds, northeast Maine. And then on the northern side of Halifax, northern side of Nova Scotia, I should say, on the southern end of New Brunswick, we're talking about the potential for storm surge greater than 9 feet. So that will be extremely significant. And that is going to be something that we are going to watch very, very closely, of course, over the next few days as we fine tune that. That graphic that I just showed you there is likely going to change a little bit because it has everything to do with where the center ends up going. There's going to be a little bit of shifting, but regardless, if you were on the coast, there's likely going to be some coastal flooding. There's going to be some aggressive waves. And that brings me to the next thing that I want to show you, the wave height forecast. Insane waves out here, higher than 36 feet possible, right along the center. Thankfully, all that is going to stay offshore, but even off the coast of Florida, you see that green and yellow start to erupt there right off the Atlantic coast. That is waves of about 6 to 9 feet crashing there. We could have 9 to 12 foot waves off the coast of the Outer Banks. And then these very high waves start to push towards the mid-Atlantic and northeast. So here we go as of Friday evening. Again, on the southern side of Long Island, we have 9 to 12 foot breaking waves. Same deal for us, a little bit lower, likely off the coast of New Jersey, about a 6 to 9 foot breaking waves. And then this is where we get the real big stuff. Again, right off the coast of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, the orange starts to show up. That is 12 to 18 foot breaking waves here all across the coast of Maine and then down into around the Cape Cod area. This biggest waves, 18 to 24 foot, even higher. There's that 24 to 36 foot, likely staying offshore, but we have those insane wave heights as well. Maybe even 18 to 24 foot waves crashing off of Nova Scotia as we are going to be on that right side. So we get that push in as Lee lifts towards the north or northwest of us in Nova Scotia. Some pretty big wave heights sticking around as well off the coast of Newfoundland. All right. That was a lot, I know. So we're going to bring it back now. We are going to show you what is actually happening in the atmosphere to lift Lee north and to kind of maybe bring it back to the northwest a little bit. As we get closer, we're going to fine-tune some of those impacts. So again, stick with this channel. If you found any of this helpful, give it a thumbs up. And please subscribe. We'd love to have you post in the comments where you're tuning in from if you are still with me. All right, here's the water vapor imagery. You guys know I love to show this because it highlights everything. I'm going to point out a few things on this map. Here is the dip in the jet stream here. This is what is responsible for tugging Lee to the north, and this is what we've been advertising here on this channel again for the last week, that this little dip in the jet stream that was going to be diving towards the deep south was going to start to pull this up, and you can kind of even see the motion here of these kind of feathery clouds. They're starting to move north. And that is what, again, this right here is the reason that we are seeing that tug to the north. So that is all responsible for pulling Lee. This is also bringing a much-needed cool down to the Great Lakes, Detroit, Chicago, Minneapolis, and then eventually towards the northeast as well, especially once Lee gets up and out of here. So that is the first two features on this map that I wanted to show you. But you also see this. See this little white and blue showing up here? Little disturbance here riding the subtropical jet stream across the southern tier of the United States. This is kind of important for a couple things. Of course, we need the rain in Texas. This is going to get us into a decently active pattern across the southern plains to give us better chances for rain, some of the highest rain chances we've seen in quite some time. But this also could be the start here of the atmosphere really realizing that we have a strong El Nino developing. Of course, we've officially been in an El Nino season since early June, since it was officially declared by NOAA. But this active subtropical jet stream is a calling card of El Nino as we move forward into the winter. That we typically see get even stronger. That means that we could have active weather rolling right on through the winter, through Texas, into Florida, into the deep south as well, keeping things cool and wet, especially towards the back half of winter. That is a story for another time. I want to show you in the short term here what that dip in the jet stream is doing. And look at this on Thursday. Oh, yeah, it's feeling like fall. Chicago, 66. Detroit, 68. Burlington, Vermont, we are in the upper 60s. Still back to around 80 toward Minneapolis. We're on the backside of that dip in the jet stream now. Look at that in Dallas, 77 degrees after a super, super hot summer. Of course, we have the rain helping with that. That's going to help to cool us down in Houston, San Antonio. I'm sorry, we're still in the mid-90s, but it beats 110. We'll keep that cooler air rolling. Look at that in Denver, 58 degrees for an afternoon high. All right, go back to that water vapor imagery. I showed you those impulses kind of coming through, riding that subtropical jet. And really from today through Friday, a decent amount of rain coming, maybe a half inch up to an inch of rain in Dallas through the time period, through Friday at 11, maybe an inch of rain in Houston, give or take. San Antonio, anywhere from a half inch to an inch of rain as well. All these little purple little blotches here in between the major cities where I have the actual model data coming in from, even higher. So we could get a couple of inches of rain in here. Now, we don't want it all at once. We could have some pockets of isolated flooding. That's what we don't want. We want the ground to be able to handle all of this. But nonetheless, this is much needed. This is super welcomed. And again, we'll take what we can get here. We just don't want it all at once. Alrighty, guys. If you're still with me, give me a thumbs up. If you want to stay updated on the weather, and especially as we track Lee all the way into New England, you have to hit subscribe. Please do that. And we will catch you next time. Again, the first and foremost biggest concern here are going to be the likely significant impacts coming towards New England and the Canadian Maritimes over the next couple of days, really starting as early as Friday night, early Saturday morning, and continuing to Monday. We will keep you posted. Hit subscribe, and again, we'll catch you next time.